I'm Rosa Mendez, and I'm here at the #1 Long Island broadcast, Monte The Pharaoh. I had the best time ever!
Hey, listen, Daddy, you're listening to the #1 broadcast, Monte and Pharaoh, Daddy, in Long Island. The best pro wrestling broadcast of all time, I think.
Jimmy, I got to tell you, man, it feels good to be back on YouTube. It was quite disappointing what happened to us, but we bounced back fairly quickly.
Well, what else would we do? We're almost at 5,000 subscribers.
Well, speaking of that, man, we need more members.
Okay.
What do you think we need to do to get the people of those 5,000 subscribers to come on and join the team as a Monte The Pharaoh member?
Nudity is out of the question. Any other ideas?
I don't know, man. I don't know. But what I do have a few ideas.
Well, just like Prel, they should tell two friends, and they could tell two friends, and so on and so on. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Check out all our content.
But that's, you know what? That's why you're the star of the show, because guess what? Members get special content. Even we spoke about it. Pharaoh came to me one day and he goes, man, what's the deal? I can't even watch some of these videos because I'm not a member. And I said, there you go, Pharaoh. You got to be a member because this is what the members get. They get free content
Nice.
that none of the other fans that watch this show get.
That's right.
You get free autographs from some of these wonderful stars that come in, right?
Nice.
All you do is you go to the MNP webpage, or right, our own page, and shoot us an email and say, hey, man, I want a picture of Tommy Rich. I want a picture of whatever. And boy, that's on its way.
We give them their choice.
That's right.
We rock.
We do rock.
You need to rock, too. Join.
All right, welcome to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast, Monte The Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music Television, straight out of Ronkonkoma, Long Island. At the board is our favorite, most famous producer of all time, Jared Spidey.
So famous.
What's up, bud?
What's up? Not much.
What's new? What's been going on this week?
Just been working, living my life.
Living your life?
Doing my
How's
thing.
your girl doing, man?
She's doing good. She's out in Connecticut.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Are you in love?
Who knows?
Who knows?
You know, Jared, you know, with all
I think
due
I'm
respect,
too young. I'm
Way to
too
dodge
young
that
for love.
bullet.
with all due
Jared,
respect,
who
you're a
knows?
really good-looking guy. I really
Thank
got to
you.
get you on camera one time. They got to really get the fans have to see how good-looking Jared is. Like, you should not be tied to one woman, Jared. I got to be honest with
What
you.
the hell, Mike? You getting worried over there? This guy's ready to kiss you. What's
we're
going
live
on
right
over
now.
Here?
Dude,
He's handsome, but
If
come on.
I looked like Jared, I would be pulling crazy,
Jared, you
crazy
are a
women.
civilized gentleman to behave the way you do. You could
Thank
be getting
you.
away with bloody murder, my friend.
You could. You definitely could.
you could.
So, Pharaoh, glad to see you this week. I'm very
I'm glad
excited.
to see me this week.
I'm very excited for this episode. We've got the podcast hosts
Yes.
from Dan and Benny in the Ring.
Very nice.
Big fan of that show.
I like the show.
Which
And
is
you don't-
amazing.
I
Which is
don't watch
amazing.
nothing or listen to nothing, but I listen to them. I do like them.
I mean, I can't
They're
wait
good.
for the people to meet these guys,
They
but
will.
I will tell you what turned me on to the show was I had seen them on another podcast. And again, you know I watch different shows,
Yes,
right?
you do.
See what kind of competition's
Sure.
out there. But long story short, I had seen them on a show, whatever, and I had known their names because I think they were on that show for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe I was on Podbean or something, and it came up on a feed or something. And they had a very, I don't know. Again, I'm not a wrestling expert. We all know this, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of people in the industry that are pretty famous, I guess, and I don't know, but they have these people on, and I'm like, oh, I got to listen to this nightmare.
Right.
So I put it on. I was like, what are they? Unbelievable. And then from that point on, hooked. Every episode friggin' off the hook.
Yeah, Nugget City.
So
nugget
finally,
after another. Yep.
finally we got the opportunity to say, hey, guys, we'd love you to come on the show. So I'm excited to hear these guys. Best part of this, though, you're an expert,
You know what? If wrestling keeps this up, I'm not going to be.
but you are.
But okay. Okay.
Benny is an expert.
Yeah.
Dan is an expert.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me, not really.
Oh, stop picking on
But-
yourself.
but-
you know plenty.
But here's
You've
the fun,
forgotten
here's
more
the
than
fun
some
part
people will
about
ever
it.
learn. Go ahead.
I think all four of us couldn't be so different. So this could be a very good
Okay.
conversation.
All right, that's cool.
And
that works.
I think there'll be a lot of disagreeing.
So what?
But fun,
That's
right?
the way it goes.
I love that
Yeah,
type of
that's
shit.
fine.
But before we get to our guests, I just want to remind everybody, 1 week from tomorrow,
We get plastered.
we get plastered.
get
There's nothing better than
plastered.
interviews with us
When
when
we're
we're plastered.
oh, wait, forget
But
it.
we got Marty Jannetty at,
What's up, Mikey?
I think at 5 o'clock or 5:30. I'd have to look at the schedule.
Does Marty still know?
Marty still knows.
Rob, just
all right?
checking, okay.
Marty knows.
Good.
And then we've got Val Venus and Eugene in here, where Marty will be on the dais. And back to the Marty thing, it's Ask Marty Anything. So I'm
Yes.
setting up video calls where our family members can
Yeah.
call in,
Very
video
cool.
in. We don't
Very
take phone calls.
very
And you
cool.
could have a one-on-one with Marty.
That's
and you
awesome.
could ask some questions. So I
Yeah.
mean, and
And
no question out of limits either, right?
With Marty?
No.
How could there
I don't think
be?
with anybody.
I also love the fact Val Venus and Eugene. That's beautiful.
And Marty will be here asking questions with us.
That's great.
Manny Fernandez after that, huge.
Very huge. Very, very, very huge.
And then we finish off with Wildfire Tommy Rich.
Yep. And at that point, you and I will have drank how much? And Tommy's going to be like, break out the bowls, break out the
Wow.
weed. I'm going to be destroyed. This is going to be great.
All right, so these guys are coming in because they're part of 80s Fest.
Okay.
And that's 80s Con, I think it's
80s
called. And that's run by a guy by the name of Tommy Fierro. What? What?
I don't feel good when you say that name. He sounds like
You don't like Tommy Fierro?
crazy ass looking motherfucker.
You don't even know Tommy Fierro,
I
do
don't.
you?
I don't.
I don't know.
I don't know. I think isn't he like one of the millions and millions that have said something bad about us?
Hey, that's not Tommy Fierro.
Who the fuck
Jared?
is that? Who the hell?
My bad.
What did you just put up? That
Yeah,
looked like
Chaz-
Chaz Bono. You know what? There is a striking similarity.
So
though.
the one thing about this guy Tommy Fierro, though, is I hear he's friends with LaGreca.
That's his
right.
problem.
And he also claims that
Yeah.
the WWE's big on him. Is big on him.
Another
Like
guy.
they're really looking
Oh.
for him to become a writer.
Of course
and
they
and
are.
part of the part of the organization.
Okay.
And all I could think about is you
Okay.
got to learn how to iron your shirt first
Yeah.
before you're going to work for. Could you imagine Vince hiring that guy? The guy doesn't even iron his shirt.
It
Man.
looks like Roderick Strong did this week. Fucking shave, asshole. What the hell are you doing? You look like Vince Russo, except you might have gone to the gym a few more times.
I don't even think you. Well, you know
barely.
what? Whatever. Anyway, the guy's trying to do the right thing and have a nice little wrestling con, and maybe with that money we can learn how to iron your clothes a little bit.
Yeah, and comb your hair and not look so much like Chaz Bono.
There you go.
That's rough.
So we got a little bit of heat on social media this week.
Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was.
Well, I made the ultimate mistake, right?
What?
So
Did you express your opinion?
I expressed
You
my opinion.
idiot.
Yes.
Every time we try to express our opinion,
But
we get in trouble.
The reason behind it was because Jim Cornette on his podcast, he was coming off the Chic documentary.
Okay.
Went on, said some unflattering things about Eric Sims. I think he called him a greasy scumbag. I don't know the exact
Jim
words.
Cornette called
Eric Sims.
a greasy scumbag?
I don't know if those were the words.
Okay,
so I
you're
don't wanna be-
paraphrasing. I
I'm
got you.
paraphrasing.
Okay, that's
And then we
fine.
all know what Kevin Nash has said about Eric Sims on
What
a couple.
happened?
On
Refresh me.
Click This. Basically, that Eric, is annoying and
Okay.
he always the event they're at is only about 5 minutes away, but Eric gets them up an hour and a half earlier.
Right,
So,
right.
We
right.
went on social media
Get some
and
KFC. I got
and
you.
I'll just
All right.
read it real quick and tell me if you agree with it or not.
All right, go ahead.
But it says recently some podcasts have been taking a hard line with Eric Sims. However, based on the online discussions and social media interactions, it appears that Eric Sims has mixed reputation among wrestling fans. Some fans appreciate his contributions to the independent wrestling scene, while others criticize him for his various reasons, such as his controversial behavior, his management style, and his involvement in certain incidents. It is important to note that the opinions of wrestling personalities, such as Jim Cornette or Kevin Nash, are highly subjective and vary widely depending on the individual preferences, experiences, and the perceptions. Ultimately, whether Eric Sims is liked or disliked by the wrestling fans is a matter of personal opinion. Our relationship with Mr. Sims has been nothing but a pleasant experience. Both Cornette and Nash have, now this is us writing, and we are we. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Both Cornette and
Was
Nash.
I sleeping while we were writing?
Yes,
I'm just
you were.
asking. Go
By the way,
ahead.
give me credit. Pretty good writer,
You
right?
did. By
Thank you.
the way, this is the best I've ever heard you read. Keep going.
Go
You're
ahead,
on
thank
fire
you.
right now.
Both
Go ahead.
Cornette and Nash have a blessed life. One having the genetics to being over 7 feet and make millions with limited of athletic ability.
Okay.
The other who had a mother who serviced the boys on a daily basis so her boy could live his dream. Honestly, pro wrestling business needs Mr. Sims. So,
Yeah. Well, I think
Lot
this
of
is
fan-
this is if I can really quickly.
Go ahead.
This is a very interesting sentence here because I could see people totally jumping the wrong way with this. By the way, when she was servicing the boys, she was taking them on runs,
Yes.
getting them food,
Right.
doing things like that.
Right.
Where the fuck's their minds? Did they come after you? Or
they
something?
came after saying, how dare you say
That is
mommy
not what that
Cornette.
meant.
No, it wasn't.
That is not what that meant.
Thank you.
Boy, you're not even allowed to use a legal English word. They're just going to
But
twist it
here
around.
lies the problem of this whole thing.
Whatever, man.
So we go to
right.
defense of Eric Sims, who we
Yeah.
do business with on a regular basis,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We'd actually consider him a friend at some point, I would think, right?
At some point,
Right.
yeah. Right.
So I go onto Sims's page because people are going crazy over this thing.
Yeah.
And Sims also
Oh, no.
let's play in Switzerland. Well, I don't know what Monte The Pharaoh and Mike Monte meant by service. I asked him, but I didn't give it an answer. Instead of saying, fuck you, those are my boys, he don't say shit.
Why not?
Because he's a whiny little pussy. That's why. He's a pussy. Eric Sims, listen, dude, we like you, but you are nothing but a disloyal little dirtbag.
Fair enough.
He is, right?
Yeah, fair enough. I agree with that. If that's the way this has gone down while I was sleeping,
Listen, we went out of our way to defend
what's
him.
up with that?
Because Eric Sims
Yeah,
is
but
about
when
Eric
was the
Sims
last
is
time-
about himself.
When was the last time anybody that has claimed to be our friend and done business with us ever fucking had our back?
Never.
Thank you.
And Eric's not even one of them either.
Well, welcome to the business.
Doesn't mean
I
I don't
guess
like
we are
Eric.
in the business.
Doesn't mean I don't like Eric, but Eric has proven himself to be a disloyal little bitch.
He should have been defending. We've
Defending us.
Yeah, well, I don't expect him to defend me. Quite honestly.
Well, that's a whole nother issue.
That's a
right?
whole nother issue.
Eric won't even shake
He
your
doesn't
hand.
even say hello and shake my hand because after all, I'm only the fucking co-host of the show.
Oh, well, you remember something. He is the Jewish ninja.
Yeah, he does know Israeli type.
So anyway, Eric disappointed me because, again, it's wartime, right? The Ukrainians are getting attacked.
Right. Right.
Here comes
Hey, wait.
the United States.
Wait. This ain't no Ukraine.
I know, but I understand.
This ain't no Ukraine.
Using an example.
No.
Ukrainians are getting attacked. Here come the United States to help them.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we go in there,
Yeah.
and the Ukraine goes, okay, well, we don't want to fight on behalf of you. Go
Right.
ahead and do business.
Right. How many times did we see this in the past with other people?
Welcome to pro
We go
wrestling.
hide behind a rock and then you guys deal with it.
I want to thank the band that sings a theme song for Monte The Pharaoh and Jimmy Farrell, along with his partner, Bart Griggs, make up the band Wisteria Hall. Wisteria Hall sings such great songs as In My Dream, This Life, Not Far Behind, Here Comes the Rain. You can find their music on the Wisteria Hall YouTube page.
Very nice.
Download their music on Spotify, Apple
Yes.
Music, Reverb Nation,
Yes,
or
yes.
where all music is
We
sold.
are about to get going with the follow-up to Tales from the Woods. Volume
Very
1.
excited.
We are about
very
to.
excited.
So,
And you know what? If you haven't heard Wisteria Hall play, by all means, go to the Wisteria Hall page or go on to Monte The Pharaoh. I think Wisteria Hall was just here about a month and a half ago
Right.
with one of the highest viewed New York cable shows of the year, by the way.
Wow.
Yes.
Very nice. And oh, by the way, our music is way better than any shit you'll see from the future upcoming Junkyard Dog train wreck.
Are you trying to say you're no pig farm?
I like Pig Farm. You leave them alone.
Jared,
I'm trying to say-
Jared to me said, what did you say to me before Pharaoh
Oh,
got here?
no, you better not. Don't you pick on Pig Farm.
I
Don't
forgot
you do
who we were talking about.
Who are you
But
talking
some-
about?
someone-
He was asking how the deal was going with a possible sponsor for the show. That's supposed to
Yeah.
be a big money deal.
Yeah.
And
It's
we
a-
were discussing it, and
Oh,
he said,
no,
"Do you
you're-
think? What'd you say? You think you ruined it with the pig farm episode?"
Oh, Jared.
No,
That's
no.
rough.
We were talking about someone coming on the show.
That
Oh,
is
that's right.
Rough.
And
We
then-
said, "Is there a possibility?" A lot of people want to come on the show, right? We get a lot of requests.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, it's really not a big deal to come on our show, right? Like, we're pretty wide open. And I think Jared
said
said,
if
well, after
Pig
you had Pig
Farm-
Farm, you opened the door for everybody.
We didn't jump the shark. We jumped the pterodactyl. I mean, what are we saying here? By the way, speaking of dinosaurs, Jared, please find out who the hell used the toilet because I feel like a brontosaurus took a dump in there. No, I'm serious. Guys, I'm sorry at home, okay? I had too
Look.
much information. I understand. Dude, I am telling you. I could not believe what was on the surface of that toilet. I was like, what the hell happened here? Kong! What the fuck?
Kong.
Who the fuck was here that left that? That ain't no ring around
You
the
know
rosy.
you are watching Long Island's #1 pro wrestling
yeah,
broadcast,
number one.
Monte The
That's
Pharaoh.
us.
Catch us on YouTube, the Monte Pharaoh YouTube page, the Monte Pharaoh Facebook Live page. Hear us on the iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor. Catch us on the Monte The Pharaoh Twitch TV page. And if you're lucky enough to live in New York, catch us on Channel 115 every Tuesday at 9 p.m. and every Saturday at 11:30 a.m. and Channel 20 on Tuesdays at 7 p.m., where you will catch the reduced, consolidated, abbreviated episode where Monte and the Pharaoh meet Dan and Benny in the ring. So this will be very excited.
Yes.
And I'm asking everybody out there, please download the free app, Intuitive, IN2. ITIVE Network. It's free. It's got documentaries, and most importantly, it has Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. We're gonna go to a quick commercial break. I want to do a roll call first before we get to our guests.
Who's out there?
It's a little light tonight, man.
What?
Rick B, I haven't seen you in a while.
Rick
Loose,
B,
how are you?
what up?
Whoa,
Luke
it's
Cannon,
Chris
what's up,
Lee.
Get out of here.
Holy shit,
No
Chris
way.
Lee's back.
What's up, man?
Chris, God bless,
What is
man. We
up?
were worried about
Where
you.
you been, bro?
A mess. I
what's
answered
up,
you
a
on the
mess?
page. Dude, you have to go see Tessa Blanchard, my friend.
What?
It's a must. He's going.
What?
Tessa Blanchard's coming to his area.
Oh, really?
He was asking what we thought, if
Go.
he should go see
Hells
Tessa.
yeah.
Hells yeah, I'd go see
And
Tessa
ask some
Blanchard.
questions. Get some information, man.
John,
What is
how
she up
are
to?
you?
Yeah.
First lady in the house, we love you. Rick B, thank you for being such a long-time member. God
Yeah,
bless
Rick,
you.
where you been,
Share
bro?
Bear, Rip Jerry Springer, real quick before we get to our guest.
Shit.
Yeah. Thank you, Share Bear. Forgot about that.
What's up, Share Bear? What is up? Dude, Jerry Springer, bro. What do you think about that? Because Jerry Springer, okay, let me real quick say this. Jerry Springer was the first television show that enlightened me to the fact that people are trash.
Really?
Think about that show! You slept with my cousin, and then I slept with yours, and I'm gonna beat you. I mean, what the... Dude, it was the worst trick I've ever...
Dude, but
it was so
the
over.
craziest episode I ever
was
saw
awful.
was
That
this
show was
guy.
so
He's like
bad.
50-something years old, right?
Yeah.
And he's on there, and he's talking about how he goes to hotels and does some stuff.
As I said, this was the show where I learned that the human race was trash.
There you go. Wow.
And then Maury Povich showed up. More trash.
We'll be back with our guests. We're very excited to have the two co-hosts, our host of Dan and Barry in the Ring.
Dan and Benny. We'll see you in a second.
Did I say Dan and Barry?
Yeah, Ben and Jerry, Dan and Barry. I don't know what's going on here. Dan and Benny in a moment. They rule. Stay tuned.
Jimmy, I gotta take a dump. What? No. I mean, I need a dumpster.
Well, for all those needs, you need to call Big V Dumpster Rental, Long Island, New York, 631-900-DUMP.
Hey folks, this is Wolfie D here, and if you are looking to buy or sell a home in Tennessee or Southern Kentucky, you're going to want to call my buddy, the rock star realtor, Benji Bowie. And you say, Wolfie, how do I get in touch with this rock star? Well, you can call him directly at 615-390-8216. You can go to his website, bowiehomes.com. That's B-U-I-E homes.com. Or you can email him at benbowie34@gmail.com. BENBUIE34@gmail.com. When you need a home, you need the Rockstar Realtor. Tell him Wolfie sent you. Benji is a member of Exit Realty's Garden Gate team in Gallatin, Tennessee.
M&J Video Games and Collectibles. Sport and non-sport cards, wrestling items, autographed items. We buy, sell, and trade. M&J Video Games and Collectibles, located at 1049 Queen Street, Southington, Connecticut. Call us at 1-860-479-9223 or 860-93-GAMES. M&J Video Games and Collectibles.
All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Monte The Pharaoh, only seen here out of Indie Music TV. And from the other side of the world, our honor, Dan and Benny in the ring.
That's the Long Island sign.
Hey, guys.
What up, guys? What up?
Thanks for joining us. So first I want to
Pleasure.
say, welcome to the dark side. You probably have lost half your friendship from
That's
appearing on this show.
You've done
but,
it. You
hey,
like Black Sabbath. You guys.
This
have
is the
done-
heel turn, right?
This is it. This is it. This is it. Well done, though, guys. Appreciate it. Why don't you do us all a favor and tell us all about your wonderful, sparkling show that even the Pharaoh fucking likes? Tell everybody about yourself, guys.
Who goes first?
Betty.
Go ahead.
You want to know how we started, maybe?
Sure. Be interesting.
Okay.
Be lively.
And
Tell me.
Dan's going to have to fill in the blanks with this one, but I started listening to a show, that's me, with my Monte The Pharaoh t-shirt. Started listening to this podcast called Wrestling with the Future, and I listened to a few episodes, and then all of a sudden, I hear from the host that they need a new co-host. And I thought, well, it's maybe something I could try. I had never done it before, but spoke to the guy on the phone for about an hour. And he says, you're in. And then I guess he actually cleared me with Sal Corrente, who was your guest a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. And then a couple of days later, I was out. And he said, we got somebody else, and his name is Dan Sebastiano. I said, okay. And I listened to him, and I thought, wow, this guy's pretty polished. And it was a good choice, on Angelo's part. As fate would have it, though, I became a guest, a semi-regular on the show after that. And a little bit after that, Dan and I decided to go our own way, and the rest is history. But I'll let Dan explain why Angelo needed the new co-host.
That's it's actually funny. I remember a couple years back when Angelo told me that there was others he was talking to. I never knew that was you that I got the job from.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
funny.
Yep. Yeah, I did the honors.
Wow.
Looking up at the lights already.
Wow, Benny. Dan just ripped your guts out and took your spot. That's rough, boy.
It was so weird, though. Like I'm listening to this guy. I mean, I was scared shitless because I had never done anything like that before. I'd never been on a podcast, and I'm listening. I said, "Man, this Dan guy's pretty polished. Good choice, And then a few weeks later, I did get invited on the show because of my writing, and then I became a semi-regular. And then I got kicked off a couple of times because we had a clash of philosophies, maybe you might want to say. And then after a while, we decided we'd do it on our own, kind of like the Jeffersons spinning off from All in the Family.
Okay.
Well, Dan,
Like,
let me ask you:
go ahead.
did you feel like did you ever think about doing podcasts? Like, how do you get involved in it?
No, I hadn't actually. When Wrestling with the Future started, you guys know Angelo. He had started with a friend of mine.
I have no
Exactly.
idea who you're talking
Sorry.
about. But go ahead.
With a friend of mine named Jeff Robinson, Jeff the Ref, we called him. He was a referee here in Mid-Atlantic area, and then he had retired and started doing security for Virginia Championship Wrestling, I guess Vanguard Championship Wrestling at the time, the local promotion here in Virginia. And unfortunately, Jeff passed away, and he was the co-host of the show. Angelo had posted something on Jeff's page that he was looking for, just kind of a filler while they figured out what to do next. Because Jeff had the roundtable show that he did, the Refs Roundtable they called it, and I reached out to Angelo and said, hey, for the sake of one, Jeff's memory, but two, I mean, half of what I would do at the VCW shows was just talk to Jeff about wrestling and history and various things. And so next thing I know, Angelo's like, yeah, that sounds great. Not only do you seem to know your stuff, but you have that personal connection to why we're trying to do this. And one thing led to another. I did the show with Angelo, Wrestling with the Future, for a couple of years. And then, like Benny said, we slowly started transitioning away from wrestling for obvious reasons. The quality of the product was not as good then as it was or had been, and a lot of the older talent we talked to, everybody was, I don't watch today's stuff, blah blah blah. So Angelo kind of wanted to spin the show off of wrestling, and while I had fun with some of those episodes talking to actors and writers and artists and other things, Benny and I had started talking about really enjoying the wrestling side of it, and one thing led to another. We talked to Angelo, we got our kind of mutual parting, and we spun off and it's been a couple of years now we've been doing Dan and Benny in the Ring.
Best
2.5 almost, yeah.
Best thing you guys ever did. Absolutely. It's so much better. You guys must be thrilled compared to what, where it was. I think so. That's me speaking, though.
So
I think his lawyers are still trying to sue us, but
What?
So
all jokes aside,
what
though,
happened to his teeth. Very good. Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
All jokes aside, though, there aren't. I would hope there's no hard feelings. He actually reached out to us not that long ago. Congratulations on the 100th episode. We had a big 2-hour special with with Ken Patera,
Nice.
and we had done. Oh, look at that, Benny! Look at that guy.
that's some guns there. Come on.
That's the guy. Who is that?
And we had
That's me.
so just to be clear, that picture that just came up, that's the guy that lost his job to a guy holding a cat a second ago.
Well, but Dan, you kind of go over that conversation. So you talk to this guy Angelo, and he's like, "You really know what you're doing. I'd like you to be part of the show." Does he turn around to you and say, "But there's this other guy I promised the position"? Like, what was that conversation like?
No, I mean, honestly, it's been a few years, but he mentioned that he had talked to other people, and I mean, to me, I didn't think of it any differently than any other job I'd applied for through the years, where it's like, you're clearly not the only one in the running, but we picked you, and I never thought about whether or not he had promised it to somebody else or how far along the conversations with other people had gotten.
Was it like this, though? Like, you finally got that job. You're like, holy cow, I'm going to be co-host of this show. And then you do a couple of them and you're like, what the
No, not at all. I mean,
That's great.
Not at all. Not at all. Like I said, I was excited because, I mean, I enjoyed a lot of what they had done. Obviously, like I said, I was friends with Jeff, and yeah, there was definitely the reason Benny and I left was because we had kind of transitioned away from wrestling, and I always played the straight man. I was for lack of a better description, you think Mulder and Scully. I was the Scully. I was the facts. I was the non-believer. So when we would want to talk to Bigfoot experts and psychics and things like that, I ended up conspiracy theorists. I was always the what if or the straight man, and that doesn't really play very well if you're trying to get a message across when one of the you're interviewing a guy who is selling a book or something, and one of the hosts clearly has, I don't want to say no interest, but he doesn't believe what this guy's saying or doesn't agree with it. It doesn't really play off very well versus the history interviews where Benny and I talk to whoever we're talking to. I mentioned the Ken Patera episode, and Benny and I, you can clearly tell during the conversation we're enjoying the story, we're learning, and that's something too that we wanted to do specifically is our style. When Benny and I sat down to create the show, was we didn't want a straight interview. We wanted something that sounds like three guys just sitting at a Hooters having a conversation about the good old days. And a lot of it comes, that way people tend to open up more. They tend to use, I mean, in Ken Patera's case, they tend to use a little more language than we expected, but
Rip Rogers.
You can't get that in a more structured interview either.
Well, Benny, answer me this one. You guys really don't know each other. You're leaving this show. How did you guys know? Like, with me and Jimmy, we've known each other a long time, and it's just natural. You guys are two people that really didn't know each other. How did you know it was going to mesh? Because, again, your show is different, and it's every week is a great listen. And how did you know this was going to work out?
Well, I mean, really didn't. I just kind of had to, start it and see where it led. But we found as we started doing the episodes that we really meshed. We have a good style. We're both kind of laid back people. We both have the passion for wrestling, and it evolved. And after about maybe 10, 15 episodes, I thought, wow, this is pretty good. And I just, we're fine-tuning it as we go.
You must be very proud now. You've hit 100 episodes. Any thoughts on the
We're
fact
at
that it's gone this far?
122, I think, was last week.
Did you ever think it would get this far?
No. I didn't. And Dan always says the average sports entertainment podcast is 3 episodes. I think we've done okay.
I think you've done fantastic.
I mean, you look at any number of shows, and like I said, anything under the Apple, Google, they track the sports and entertainment stuff. And yeah, the average listen is 3. So when we went into it, it's like, hey, if it picks up, great. I mean, we didn't go into it with planning to dethrone Cornette or anybody, be the biggest and the best. We were gonna, two guys, like I said, a couple of microphones and a laptop. We'll see where it goes. And right. I mean, here we are 2.5 years later, still having fun. So.
But here's the thing, right? So Dan, you're a younger guy, right? Benny's a bit older. We're kind of
ancient.
We're in the middle, but we're not in the middle. We're on the ancient. Other side.
Yeah.
You guys have to have differences of opinions, especially when it comes down to wrestling, right? Feel free to speak, guys.
Well, you didn't.
I didn't want to step on anybody.
I should have raised my hand. Can I speak? I don't feel like that's ever been an issue. And I mean, quite honestly, Dan's an old school wrestling fan. So am I.
Right.
And we don't like a lot of the newer stuff. So it really hasn't been an issue.
Okay. How do you both feel about Vince McMahon? Because that always seems to be the thing that divides the old school fans.
Well, I want to add in here. Hold on. Yeah. One of my major problems with Dan and Benny is they go out of their way to put down our mentor, our icon.
What?
Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
Oh. All right.
So to add on to Pharaoh's question,
that's fine. Whatever.
How could either one of you be down on Vince McMahon, considering what he's done for the industry that both of you love so much?
Can I start?
Well, it's the same
at all, or just fuck him. Is that basically it?
The same way that somebody who builds computers for fun can dislike Bill Gates or the opinion people have of Elon Musk nowadays. Benny and I just the history side that we cover, we give credit where credit is due with some of the promotions. I mean, how many times a month do we mention like Bruno or some of the talent that worked for Vince Sr. and Vince Jr. brought back? We've talked about some of the success in the time periods. So it's not a blanket F that guy, forget him. But there's also there is a clear point. You can look at wrestling over the last 20-ish years where you can see the modern Vince McMahon shining through, and that current product with the lack of stars, the ridiculous storylines and characters and gimmicks and some of the decisions you see, and you can clearly tell that was 100% Vince, and the stories coming out about the Raw script getting rewritten at 7:55 p.m. for a show that starts at 8. They still don't know what the main event's going to be.
Well, he was doing that even in the good days, like the days that you would probably be more fond of. This has always been his MO. He's always worked like that. He's always gone on whims, and he's always changed shit. He's always been like this. Whether it was Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, or all the way through to Stone Cold and everybody. This is Vince. You can't be that surprised anymore.
No, but if you listen, you mentioned Cornette before you brought us on. You listen to people, Cornette, Jim Ross, and some of the talent that he worked with back then. It's there's a period where, yes, Vince was Vince. He's always been Vince, but he had a chunk of time where he had voices in his ears that he listened to that kept certain things, I don't want to say at bay, but they definitely kept certain forces away. And when he was 100% him with 100% control, and he only had one or two yes men instead of people that were willing to put their foot down and be like, Vince, that's a bad idea, or I think that doesn't work for me, brother. However you want to word it, you start having the current product.
Hold on.
Go ahead,
Benny, weigh in, and then I've got something to say. Go ahead, Benny.
Okay. Well, your remark was that he made it better, but did he? For me, he didn't make it better, and that's my problem with Vince McMahon because. Before he bought the company from his father, there were 30 territories around the country employing probably about 3,000 wrestlers, all who made a gainful a gainful living wrestling full time, and that is now maybe a couple of hundred wrestlers. And from a fan's perspective, I'll use Florida for an example because I'm here. But the loop in Florida was, I believe, Orlando on Sunday, West Palm on Monday, Tampa Tuesday, Miami Wednesday, and Jacksonville Thursday. And they ran spot shows on Friday and Saturday. So if I'm a fan of living in Florida, a wrestling fan in 1981, and I'm living in Tampa, I can see wrestling at least 52 times a year. If I want to get in my car and drive an hour to Orlando, then I could see it 104 times a year. And the spot shows might be local. So now living in Tampa, I live about half an hour from is it Amalie, where they would show it. They might come here twice a year. So how am I better off as a fan? Something I could have seen 100 times, and it was very affordable, by the way.
Right.
You might pay $7 for a ringside ticket at the Homer Hesterly in Tampa to watch wrestling on a Tuesday night. Now you want to buy a ticket to Raw, you're paying $75, $80. So
Right.
I mean, Vince McMahon made wrestling better for him.
He made it bigger.
But did he make it better for the fans? Did he make it better for the wrestlers?
It matters what your approach is, right?
Well, when he says 30 territories back in the day, you know what I think of?
What?
And I'm just being very honest and this is the truth, we've had enough guests on who've confirmed this. Back in those days, we had 30 territories, 30 little Vince McMahons screwing over all the wrestlers anyway. Every goddamn territory. They weren't all like, oh, are you hurt? Let me get you medical. Give me a break, guys. Come on.
Some were better than others, though. Some
might
had
be better than
reputations.
others,
Some
but
were
none of
good.
them were a picnic. None of them.
The point here
Not from
is,
what I've heard.
Look, this country is a capitalist country, right?
Yeah.
Vince McMahon ate the competition.
Yes, he did.
So now, Benny, instead of spending $18 a week, you could save that up and you could spend your $150 a month,
And
a
I'm
year.
not saying that's better, by the way. I think Vince McMahon made wrestling bigger.
But
Did he make
they
it
were
better?
wrestling at a
That's
smaller
objective.
venue, and I got to believe that those wrestlers, if you're like, say, Memphis, another example where they wrestled at the Mid-South Coliseum every Monday night, you got to know that Jimmy Vang and Jerry Lawler and Dundee, they saw the same people in those first two rows there was a bonding there between the fans and the wrestlers, and you don't have that anymore. It's just so impersonal. New Jack
was thrilled with the way Jared and Lawler
Dan,
treated him.
Dan, I'm going to throw this at you now. So you heard what Benny said. It's less impersonal. So is the real problem is that you, the wrestling fan, have lost your own little Idaho, and now you're upset that the entire world has found out the secret about the wonderful world of wrestling?
It's gotten kind of big.
I definitely, you remember the famous speech when he talked about sports entertainment, where he had to admit that wrestling was a scripted entertainment, so he wouldn't have to pay the sports fees if they considered it a competition. He saved a lot of money not having to pay certain sports authorities. If we said, hey, this is the same thing as putting on theater. So, he had to peel back the curtain to save money, something that other promoters wouldn't have done. But I don't think it's the island. I will say, not to sound, butterfly, what do they call that? The butterfly effect, like ripple effect. But the current style of wrestling that Benny and I both are adamant not fans of, the 10,000 super kicks, the triple power bomb off the top rope through a table that's not the finish. The style that started in the indies was originally, that was the anti-Vince style. These guys didn't want to wrestle the Vince style because they had to do their own thing. Right. And now that's become what everybody who's not a Vince guy is expected to do. Because you hear that. They talk about, we're going to hire somebody off the street and then we put them through NXT, the training school, and we teach them the WWE style. And anywhere else you go, it's not the WWE style. So, Vince's death grip on the business ended up hurting the product overall in ways that it wouldn't have if it had stayed territory. So, no, I'm not angry. I don't have my island. I'm not mad that kayfabe is dead, even though I think both of those are largely his fault. I don't like the fact that the product as a whole, I personally feel is worse than it used to be. And that all stems from the control and decisions he had because of that control. A lot of it boils down to him.
It's a good comment.
That's fair.
It's a
That's
very
fair.
intelligent
He's
comment.
entitled to feel that way. That makes sense to me.
But I will ask
Makes
you
sense to
this:
me.
being that you've gotten older, both Dan and Benny both answer individually. Think about your favorite matches are from the old school days, right? I know Dan, you're an NWA guy. I think Benny, you're more of a Northeastern guy. I could be wrong.
Yeah, WWF.
But if you ever sit back and watch those old matches, which, by the way,
Don't do it.
I
Don't
tell
say that.
Pharaoh all the time,
No,
I
no.
loved. I went live to the Garden every month.
He thinks they're terrible.
I want to throw up in my mouth when I watch those
He has
matches.
a hard time watching
They're
their matches.
awful.
He thinks they're awful.
So I ask you, give me a match
I don't think
that is true, dear to your heart, and tell me the last time you watched it, and why is it true to your heart?
Go ahead, Benny.
Maybe I watched Bruno and Zbyszko. Actually, I watched Bruno and Zbyszko, the actual feud, because that really
great.
got me. In 1980,
Yeah.
Bruno was at the tail end of his career. Actually, Bruno was gone. He came back just to fight Larry, and I mean, I was totally emotionally invested in that. Now, and Mike, we've talked about this offline, and I agree with you. It really wasn't the wrestling per se. Although I would have to say the wrestling, the appeal to the wrestling was that it looked real, but it was more the emotion that I don't have anymore. That goes with any of the matches. You remember how you felt at the time, how invested you were in the wrestler or the match. I think it was much more that than the actual wrestling match itself. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Dan?
Yeah, I completely agree with what he's saying. And actually, it's funny. We were talking recently about old shows and some of the early, going back to Vince, some of the early WWF pay-per-views that when you hear about like Savage Steamboat WrestleMania 3, some of the matches that are considered the great matches of the time, I think still hold up. But when I look at what I grew up watching with the Rock and Roll in the Midnight and Steamboat Flair, and I'll admit I had a soft spot for some of the people like say Ronnie Garvin, who a lot of his work didn't hold up as well as it should have. But
Can I just stop you there? I have a question for you. So, and Pharaoh knows this, and I say this respectfully. The wrestling fan or the expert will always pull the Steamboat Flair matches out. How can any of those three matches be considered great when literally they drew 3,000, 4,000, and 5,000 fans? Dan?
Well, I think it has to go with the nature. I mean, between the business and the times. I mean, I look at some of the matches that I've seen live. Some of the anybody that's ever been to an indie show, at a modern indie show. I go here in Virginia. We have a really good indie crowd. You go to a Armory, 500 people, and you get more emotion and more investment and more entertainment than when I went to the Coliseum for Raw and there was 20,000 people in the building. I think to say that a match wasn't good just because the crowd was small ignores the quality of the match. I mean, look at the empty arena era WWE had during COVID. They were literally performing in front of no one, and there was still some quality television.
Pharaoh?
I'm thinking about McIntyre's reign during the COVID. Didn't really help him much.
Well, what's your opinion about Flair Steamboat? I'm asking you.
I tend to lean towards that. They were great matches, but they didn't grab or captivate the imagination the way Hogan Andre did. That's the way it goes. It doesn't mean that it's any less of a great match. They were great matches.
But when you consider the great matches of all time,
Yeah.
you heard what Dan said,
I agree
you heard
that
what
it
Benny
does
said.
not have to be a billion people there.
But listen
I
to
agree
what
with
I'm
that.
saying.
Yeah.
Neither one of them mentioned Hogan Andre.
That's the greatest
which both you and I
If-
consider the
It's
greatest match of all time.
Greatest spectacle.
If I
I've
may,
ever seen
go ahead.
To me, spectacle.
even as a purist of talent, from a purely emotional standpoint as a fan, Hogan slamming Andre is still the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest moment in wrestling history.
There it is.
Very good.
As far as just the crowd reaction. Now that match, if you go back and watch it in a vacuum, it wasn't a very good match. You could tell Andre was immobile, and Hogan's American style was never going to carry the day. But
the fans
who
were
cares?
all over
I mean,
it.
Flair,
they were all over it.
Flair Garvin in the cage at Starrcade was a terrible cage match, but Flair was going to get that belt back, and that's all that mattered. It was the emotion of the story.
Right.
You mentioned, I heard you mention Drew McIntyre earlier. Him beating Lesnar, that was an emotional moment. He finally got his due after 15 years of having to claw his way through the company that treated him like garbage. There was no crowd, and it was still an emotional moment. But no, I think you can have emotion and storytelling and good wrestling, and they sometimes be mutually exclusive.
Does Vince McMahon get even a slight tip of that lovely cap you're wearing? The fact that McIntyre had to go, yes, it's true. He wasn't getting over enough, and he wasn't being pushed, whatever you want to say it was. McIntyre went off to the Indies. Does Vince get a little tip of the cap to go, you know what?
Oh yeah,
You
like
proved
I
something
said
to
at the
me.
beginning.
You kicked some ass, you showed me, and now I'm going to take care of you. I mean, he did.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like I said at the beginning, even on our show, we credit where credit is due. He definitely does. I mean, you're not a $1 billion company in an era when wrestling was 30 territory competitive without some kind of talent. It's just that wrestling can also be a what have you done for me lately kind of story. Like, yes, I can credit him with Hogan and Savage and Andre and taking a chance on the Warrior and some of the stuff that he did, that whether it played off or not. I mean, who would have thought putting the Intercontinental title on Santino would have turned out to be as popular a storyline as it was? You got to be able to see. You got to be able to see that, but that doesn't change the current old however Vince is now and the product that he put out. And you saw it when he stepped away and the quality changed under Triple H. There was a noticeable change in quality, and then Vince comes back, and all of a sudden the Raw after Mania was a terrible show, and it was clearly a Vince Raw again. Like,
are you guys currently watching any of this product? Because I know you guys both obviously must enjoy storylines. Benny, have you watched the Bloodline storyline? The Bloodline.
What I'll do, I told Mike this offline. Well, I won't watch a Raw or a SmackDown, but what I'll do is when I'm on YouTube, and I'll if I see a clip from Raw or SmackDown, I will watch it. Okay. Just to kind of, get the Reader's Digest version of it.
Okay. How about you, Dan? Do you watch the whole, have you sat and given a whole episode a shot, or is it just, screw this already?
No, I definitely still keep up with the modern product. I will admit, for SmackDown, because of my Friday night schedule, I'll watch it Saturday morning, the stream version, which is 90 minutes with the commercials cut. So I can't tell if there's an angle that I'm missing.
Right. Right.
I do remember watching a 90-minute stream after the fact, and they had cut the debut of Stardust, and I remember somebody asking my opinion on that, and I had no idea who they were talking about, so I had to go back and watch the actual show.
Fucking Hulu.
But no, as far as Raw and Dynamite, I do watch the whole. Well, in Raw's case, I'll fast forward through the commercials, but I do watch the whole thing.
Do you think that AEW is all that, the way they make it out, or what do you think of AEW? Because it sounds like you don't like spot fests and calisthenics and flip-flops either.
AEW is a great example of entertainment and story versus some of the stuff I do and don't like the feud last year between Punk and MJF with the dog collar match and the promos. It was phenomenal as far as gripping, entertaining, great stuff. And then the opening match of a pay-per-view is the Young Bucks and the Lucha Brothers. And there was, at one point, my buddy and I watched, I think it was their cage match, and there was 151 super kicks during the course of the match between the four guys. And it's like, I'm watching boots made of thumbtacks and flaming tables not be the finish. That I'm not a fan of. But that doesn't mean the entire product is garbage. When someone says, I don't like John Cena, so WWE sucks, that's just ignorant and stupid. It's the same thing. You can enjoy a product without liking maybe one or two people on it. You said the Bloodline storyline. I thought the Bloodline storyline was great, but that doesn't mean every second of SmackDown the last 2 years has been top notch.
Of course not.
I want to bring it back to your show. You've had so many guests and really good guests. Benny, who was your favorite interview?
I'd have to say Kent Patera. Although we had a gentleman named Keith Elliott Greenberg, an author, a couple of weeks ago, and he was phenomenal. But as far as like entertainment, I mean, the reason why I say Kent Patera is, I mean, I grew up watching Kent Patera. Now all of a sudden I'm interviewing the guy. It was surreal. I had to pinch myself. But he was very, very funny. The man has no filter, and he had some great stories.
How about you, Dan? What was your favorite interview?
Honestly, I'm kind of cheating. One of our early episodes, during the first couple, was an interview we did with a gentleman named George Pontus, who's a dear friend of mine. He was a filmographer who recorded a lot of the early NWA stuff. Flair versus Rogers, for example, or a lot of the someone sitting at ringside with a camera recording Steamboat and Flair and anything in the 70s, 80s, that was him. And I just, the history behind it, because I've seen a lot of his footage before it went to the network and became mainstream. So hearing the story of the little kid who basically begged and pleaded to sit at ringside, and 40 years later, he's still at ringside recording stuff, and he's still active in the business today. I loved that story, and that episode actually was our first to really exceed big numbers. I mean, it was in the download numbers in the hundreds pretty quickly, and that kind of gave us, that was the moment Benny and I realized, like, hey, we might be onto something here. It's not just two guys with a couple of microphones. Like, we actually have a fan base, and things just kind of went from there. So it's got a soft spot in my heart, that show.
Love it. Love it. So, Dan, you open up your shows with the same question, right? You say, we like to ask the question to your fans. What do you say to the person you're interviewing? Can you share that with the fans here?
Yeah, every interview we say it's because it's like a snowflake. Every answer is different. We always start with a two-part question of when did you become a fan of wrestling? And depending on their position, when did you decide to make wrestling a profession? Like, when did you decide to become a wrestler or a referee or write about it or whatever? And we love starting with that question because, like I said, some of the answers are so different. Everything from you talked about the crowd earlier. How many times, Benny, have we had somebody whose their story starts with my grandfather or my grandmother used to take me to the wrestling shows, and right. Sometimes it's people who, I didn't like wrestling, and a friend of mine dragged me along, and next thing I know, I'm hooked. So it's just fun to hear the stories because they're so different, and it really sets the tone for the kind of person you're listening to. Because you're talking to somebody who's in their 70s or older that, I've been watching wrestling since I was a kid. These are 1950s. They're sitting in front of a television, and now we're hearing their story today. So
I want to follow suit with you, right? Because you know how much I enjoy your show. So I'm going to ask you one of the questions I ask a lot of our guests, right?
Yeah.
So one of Pharaoh's and my favorite movie is The Wrestler. Would you feel The Wrestler would have been as successful as it was if Evan Ginsberg wasn't the executive associate producer of that movie?
Oh, jeez.
Oh, my God! No! There's no way it would have been as good. What are you talking? It was surreal. I was suddenly playing myself.
What did Booker T say? Tell me you didn't just say that.
We just said that. Your thoughts?
Oh, man.
Absolutely not. It would have been a forgotten relic on the cutting room floor of of a film festival in Idaho.
Wow. Wow. Now that was a great answer.
Wow, there's a lot of hot butter on that popcorn I just
You
bought.
ain't kidding.
Oh, man. Holy
Listen.
lather. Hey. Anyway.
Wow.
Hey. My God. Especially
wow.
with the follow-up, the sequel. The Empire Stinks Up. What was that, 372 hours? What was that thing called? Anyway, that was horrendous.
Hey,
But, anyway, I like the answer, though.
Look.
Good answer. Good answer.
Here we go. Roman Reigns.
Oh,
Want you both to answer.
acknowledge him.
Is Roman Reigns in the top 5 greatest
Don't do that.
wrestlers
Now they're not going to
in
acknowledge
pro wrestling
They're
history?
not going to acknowledge him now. Why did you phrase it that way? Oh, for God's
Go ahead, Benny.
Go ahead, Benny.
Pro wrestling history? I mean, he's
History.
clearly the
History.
Let him have it, Benny. Go ahead.
no. Well,
But before you answer that, Benny, hold on.
Make the
He's
case.
drawn the
Make
most
the case.
money in the history of
Make
any champion.
the case.
I don't care about that times of change and recessions and inflation.
Yeah.
He has drawn the most money in his short time as heavyweight champion than any
Short time.
champion.
This is the 5th longest reign in the history of the 60 years of
Understood.
the company.
Understood.
This is the 5th longest
Now, guys,
reign.
go ahead and retort.
that's really a tough one. I mean, the guy is incredible. The guy is he's clearly the best in the sport at the moment, and he's been for a while. And he has drawn the most money. It's kind of hard to argue against that. But for example, last year, and I use WrestlingData.com when for research for my stories, and according to that, he wrestled 47 times last year. Mm-hmm. Now, on an average year, Bruno wrestled 275 times. So how do you lump somebody with these guys who wrestle 300 times a year when he's wrestling once a week?
Well, to me, that means numerically that Vince McMahon Sr. was a slave driver and Junior takes it easy on the guys.
Well, I mean, they all did, regardless of the territory. Everybody was wrestling.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Betty. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying it's not just Vince Senior, because regardless of any territory, you wrestled every night of the week.
That's what I
pretty
meant
much.
earlier by all those territories. Listen, I love the old territory days, bro. I loved it. But to me, there was 30 different territories with 30 different mini Vince McMahons and getting what they can out of the workers and working the shit out of them. I feel today.
Maybe
almost
in
nailed it.
2
right
more
there.
years, he's still a champion. Absolutely.
Oh, it's crazy what's going on.
Dan, what are your
Crazy.
thoughts?
Well, I think it's important to know that the wrestling, like you said, the 30 territories, the wrestling business is different now than it was. I mean, between the USA deal, the Fox deal, Peacock, the WWE has something like $600 million a year in revenue before they sell a single ticket or T-shirt.
Crazy.
And Roman Reigns is the perfect champion for that. He doesn't have to wrestle every week. It's nice to have a champion that feels like an attraction again, because he does take swaths of time off. And I mean that as a compliment to him, that, his matches feel like a big deal.
Yes.
Yes.
They feel like a heavyweight fight.
Absolutely.
Yes. As far as best ever, I mean, he's the best product today, like across wrestling period, as far as draw, as far as emotion, as far as what he brings to what he's doing. And I don't think, and I also, it goes to Benny and I have talked a lot about managers, the importance of managers. I don't think Roman is nearly as successful without Paul Heyman or the mouthpiece.
I agree.
So, I think he's exactly what he needs. As far as best ever, he's the best of this era, but that's like people that want to compare Tom Brady and Joe Montana, or current pitcher with Nolan Ryan or somebody of that, the older era, Sandy Koufax, where it's hard to compare others. He's definitely top 10 as far as what he brings to the sport, but there's guys that like Bruno you could blindfold Bruno and break 3 of his knuckles, and he would wrestle Roman into a pretzel in about 2 minutes. So as far as his in-ring thing, I will say, as far as a compliment of a criticism, Roman really only has about 7 or 8 things that he does each match. But he brings more to a small moveset than someone like a Kevin Nash or a late era Hulk Hogan ever did.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
I have to add one thing, though, if I can.
Yeah.
Roman Reigns cheats. Bruno never cheated. So when the referee's back was turned, Dominic DeNucci never slapped Toru Tanaka in the face with a piece of gabagool.
Maybe he should have.
Wow.
Suck my dick.
There you go.
Dominic DeNucci.
Let's not forget about that. Previous show we had a guest on. Benny, I want you to share your story of your idol and meeting your idol, Bruno Sammartino. And when you're done, I want you guys to send us out because we're almost out of time. But what the Dan and Benny show have meant for each of you. So go ahead, Benny.
Okay. So I became friends with a gentleman named Mike Miggett on Facebook. And Mike lives in Johnstown City, Pennsylvania, runs a printing company, and became friends with Bruno. I guess Bruno needed some posters made. And Mike was a huge wrestling fan as a kid. He's probably about your age, mid-50s. And so, I mean, Bruno calls asking for these posters. Mike makes them for Bruno at no charge, and they become very good friends. And so on Bruno's birthday, it would have been October 6th in 2017, I wrote a tribute on Facebook to Bruno. And so Mike read it, and he said, he called me. He said, I'm going out to dinner with Bruno tomorrow night. Would you mind if I read it to Bruno? I said, would I mind? Are you kidding me? Like, absolutely read it to him. And he said, well, he might call you. I said, yeah, whatever, sure. And the next day, I was working at a car dealership. I was living in Minnesota. I worked for a dealership in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. 6 o'clock, which is normally, I'm swamped. My office is empty. The phone rings, and it's Mike. He said, somebody wants to talk to you. And and I'm thinking, sure, right? It's going to be somebody who can imitate Bruno. But Bruno had a very distinct speaking style. And what he said to me is, Benny, where did you learn to write those beautiful words? I said, Bruno, when it comes from the heart, it's actually very, very easy. And we chatted for about maybe 10 minutes. And then Mike got up back on the phone. And about a week later, Mike said, Bruno really liked you. They're doing a Christmas dinner at Rico's, which is Bruno's favorite restaurant in Pittsburgh. Bruno would like to know if you'd like to, join us.
Wow.
I'm telling you, within a half an hour, I had bought my plane ticket, reserved a hotel room, and got my PTO from work. And it was December the 16th, 2017. And it was, besides my kids being born, it was probably the greatest night of my entire life. I sat next to Dominic DeNucci. I was about maybe 7 feet from Bruno. And Donnie Iris, the rock star, was it? Do you remember him?
Love is like
a rock.
Yeah, sure.
And Aaliyah. Yeah, he was at the end of the table. And
very cool.
Yeah, and now as far as what Dan and Benny means to me, one of my sons still lives in Minnesota, Dan, and somebody he worked with actually said, "Hey, is your dad Benny Scala?" And he said, well, "Yeah, how did you know that?" He goes, "I watch him on his podcast." I'm like, "Holy cow!" I could tell how proud my son was when he told me that story, and I'm thinking, like, if that's the only person who ever watched me, that alone made it worth it.
Very cool.
Very cool. Dan?
Yeah, I work outside of the podcast. I work for a defense contractor, and I had somebody come by my old office about a year and a half ago and want to put his name in. We were doing a drawing for a giving away a Jimmy Valiant autograph. And this guy was like, he found where I worked, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I heard you worked here," and he was a fan of the show, and he wanted to put his name in for the Jimmy Valiant drawing. And it's just funny that, like Benny said, I actually, regardless of where the show goes from here, I ran into somebody who recognized me and was a fan, and that's just such a neat feeling. But I'm at the age where I'm in transition. Like I tell people, my parents are both in their 70s. I've got aunts and uncles in their 70s. I've got no grandparents left. Like life is taking things away more than it's giving them to you now. And this show lets us cement some history that was really important to Benny and I when we were younger. And I treasure the chance to be able to do that. And this show gives us that the way that I didn't think I would have had at this point in my life.
Wow. Well, first of all, that's another thing I wanted to say.
Great answers, by the way.
Dan, thank
Great
you
answers.
for your service. I didn't get that opportunity when we first started the show, so thank you. Quite the difference from the Monte and the Pharaoh show. We get lawyers going on saying, fuck you, Monte and the Pharaoh.
Not to mention death threats. Die, Pharaoh. These guys are getting invited to go eat with Bruno.
What you guys are
Fair.
all
Wait a
kidding
minute.
aside, what you guys are doing is true art. And if you love the sport of wrestling, this is the show to watch.
Yeah.
Or listen to.
Thank you.
I'm
Hey,
a
guys,
huge
if I can,
fan.
real fast, thank you both for not giving a shit about the crap you're going to hear, for having the balls to come on and talk to us. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
You tell those people, too bad.
Yeah,
Well, we're heels now. We don't care, right?
Oh, that's true.
that's right. They're
Oh,
heels.
Mr. Fuji salt packet, right in the eyes. Excellent.
Want to thank you guys for joining us. Again, it was our honor to have you on the show. We certainly consider you guys friends, and
Likewise.
keep up the good work. I hope to see your 200th
Definitely.
episode where you'll have Chubby Tortello, my lawyer, on, and maybe 1 hour with Chubby will be enough to make you quit, but hang in there.
You made fun of
Hopefully
Brock
by then
Purdy.
he's done with his
I don't
Jane
like
Fonda
you.
workouts.
What's
Right.
up, Betty?
We'll see you guys around. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir.
All right, take care.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, Pharaoh, what are you thinking, brother?
I think I like them. That's what I think.
You don't like a lot of people.
I don't. I can't stand people. I like them. They're cool.
I gotta tell you,
And they got balls because
all
they're going to get some
seriousness,
shit for coming
I
on the
feel,
show.
I
so
actually
good
feel
for
a
them.
little intimidated between those two and then you.
Why? What?
Because you guys know wrestling. I know nothing.
Would you stop
I
doing
know
that?
nothing.
You put the Asiatic spike on that kid in 8th grade.
All I
What are you
do,
talking
all I
about?
do is make stupid comments.
Well, you serve a purpose. What's
There
the
you go.
problem?
It's our
What the? Stop it.
But I got to tell you,
Yeah.
having
Those are good dudes.
I will tell you, like when he was talking about AEW,
Yeah.
I bit my lip.
Well, you can see. Well, he also said he didn't want to see 151
Yeah,
super
but
kicks.
with all
I
due
mean, come on.
respect,
What?
again, people like what they like.
Yeah.
But to me,
He didn't strike
that
me as
ep-
a huge fan of them.
no,
okay.
but when he was saying how enthralled he was about the MJF
that's
storyline with CM
I can
Punk or
see
whatever,
somebody being into that. They're just not you.
I guess.
I wasn't that
maybe I
heavily-
maybe I just hate on AEW
Well,
too much. Maybe that's the problem.
No. And by the way, there's just like we were saying, like you can have a great, like he said about the Bloodline. Yes, the Bloodline's great, but what about the rest of the show? Same there. Yes, MJF and Jericho is cool, or MJF and Punk is cool. But what about the rest of the show? You know what I mean? It goes both ways a lot
Right.
of the times.
Right,
a
right.
show can have an awesome main event type story, but everything underneath it could be the drizzling shits. It all depends.
Well,
You know you know how much filler shit was during the Attitude Era?
oh, it's
You
terrible.
ever
Right.
stop and look at some of
Right.
those shows?
Here's one thing. Here's
a lot
another
of
thing.
shit in
Here's
between
another
the
thing that
greatness.
I don't necessarily agree on.
What's that?
It's like instantaneous. Vince is back. The show sucks.
Yeah, that's
I've
a
said-
little.
wait a
That's a
minute.
little much.
I said to you
I
numerous
agree with
times,
that.
you're like, so what do you think of Raw? It's
Right.
getting good with Triple H. What did I say to you?
You're like,
It's the
eh,
same thing.
It seems like the same.
It seems like the same
I
thing.
noticed the change, but I wouldn't expect you as much to. Dude, you didn't sit and watch NXT for years like I
Right,
did.
right.
I know how Triple H writes. I wouldn't expect you to go instantly. Oh, that's the stamp of Triple H. You know
Right.
what? I get worried if you said that. I'd be like, what? Would you turn into a nerd?
Yeah,
What
no,
do you
you're
even
right.
know that? You know what I mean? But I think that's a little extreme as far as, Vince took over, now it stinks again. I don't think it stinks. I just don't think it's... This is after WrestleMania. It doesn't always take off after WrestleMania. It
And
has
also,
certain
you got
years,
to think about
and in
this.
certain years
We were
it's
going
not so
hard and
great
heavy
after
for about
WrestleMania.
4 months leading up to WrestleMania.
Yeah, that was a hell of a
people
run.
were going crazy.
Yeah, it was a good
and
run.
you kind of just got a little
There
burnt
has
out
to
on
be
it.
a come down from that. There has to be.
But
You know?
again, everybody, I do recommend every Wednesday. They're on audio. I always tell them to try to go on YouTube or Rumble or something.
Yeah,
but
why not? Did you
they're
see
on.
that guy's man cave?
Oh, this shit's
That
better.
Dan should have that
Put
thing
mine
like,
to shame.
Check out my man cave. I would have that on YouTube all the time. Oh well.
Did you like his little lamb chops there?
Yeah, I like him.
I wanted him to go like,
Lamb chops are
Bobby,
good.
want the peanut?
What happened to Benny? Didn't Benny have long hair though? What's
Benny
going
cut
on
his
with-
hair.
Why?
All seriousness,
That's rough.
every Wednesday, watch their show. Look,
I like it.
I will tell
That
you.
should say something.
It's funny. I get up early for work, right,
Can't
as
stand
you know.
anything out there. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
always go to my phone, right, while
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
taking a dump or whatever else, right?
You're not the guy who left that shit in the bathroom over there, are you? Because you
No.
died in the Jurassic Age, if that's the case.
But
Go ahead.
But I always go, oh, I wonder who they have on, and
Yeah.
I go, I look, and then I'm like, oh my god,
Who's this?
What is this?
But then you get some.
And then I get into the office, I put it
Right.
on, and I'm like, holy
Right.
Christ,
They got
what a
some-
great
they got
interview!
some recognizable names, obviously, too. But you're right. They'll pull out the sneaky one.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, what's this? And
I get a
then-
little jealous sometimes. I'm like, damn,
Where'd they find that guy?
where'd they find that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you ask him? Where'd you find him?
Nah, I don't.
And
do
then
that.
we can roast him.
No, I got rules.
And then he'll be like, why did you refer
We
me
have
to
standard.
Monte
We
and the
have
Pharaoh,
standard
those
rules
jerks?
on this show.
We do?
Yes,
Oh, that's right. We never follow. We lead.
that's correct.
That's true. Wow. Arrogant, aren't we?
yes.
And humble, too.
What do you think of that, Jared? Right? We don't follow, we lead. Right?
Definitely.
Right. So let me ask you something.
That's
So they
a
have a
very
great
good
guest
answer,
on, an
Jared.
incredible guest, the most incredible guest of all time. Are we wrong for not taking that guest after them?
Listen, if Hulk Hogan-
Depends who the guest is.
Right.
So I will
I
tell.
think there could be some overlap.
I'm going to tell you a quick story. Right. I had a guest that was on a couple other shows
Right.
reach out to us and said, "I'd
Yes.
love to be on your show."
Nope.
And I said,
Nope.
"No."
You watered it down.
I said, "No."
You watered it down.
One
No, I
being Ron
agree.
Shaw.
You punk. You punk.
That is insane.
You punk. We're not apologizing, Ron. You can forget it. Anyway. Or are we?
No.
Good. Don't you go soft
Again,
on me.
big fan of those guys. And you know what you did say? They are going to get a lot of heat.
They
for
are.
coming on this
And I
show.
give them a lot of credit, too. And I hope that they
It-
tell
you
those
know what?
people,
It
grow
leg-
the fuck
it
up.
Legitimately,
It's their
it
opinion.
legitimately was a ballsy move.
I think it was. I give them a lot of props for
How
that.
about Dan with a quick reaction on the old wrestler question?
Yeah.
He actually returned pretty well. Like
Yeah.
he recovered
Yeah.
after he laughed
Yeah.
till he peed in his pants.
Oh, absolutely. But he's got to make sure that, Evan still wants to, talk wrestling with him.
Maybe not.
Otherwise, I'll never speak to you again.
Just think,
I
what
don't
year was that? We'll call it 19.
the
The wrestler was what, 2009, right?
I can't remember. It was in the early 2000s.
No,
don't have the
2009.
exact-
I was going in
I
for
don't
my
have the-
surgery.
was
I
it
remember.
2000? I
Okay.
can't remember.
So just think about it.
It's surreal. I can't remember.
If you were in Wrestling Universe
Yeah.
in 2008
Yeah.
with Greg the Hammer Valentine
Oh,
because you
God.
were doing a signing,
toilet paper. Hurry up.
you would have been associate producer for the wrestler.
No, I wouldn't
That's how simple it was.
I wouldn't have, though.
Why?
Because I would have been in the wrestler.
Well, he
and
was in he was in the wrestler.
Not going, hi, my name is Pharaoh. This is surreal. Why are you not shaking my head, Randy the Ram? No way.
Hi, I'm a big fan of yours.
No way. I would have been at least a timekeeper, something valid.
watched you in Madison Square Garden.
That's me ringing that bell. That's me. I was there. What happened? I was in Wallbounds, and the guy walked in, and we started talking about Bruno, and the next thing you know, I had my own Facebook page. My opinion was dominating the charts. Donate now! Billy Graham's liver hurts. Fuck off. Seriously, just fuck off already. Stop it already. Get off your fucking preaching high horse.
my
Fuck
God.
yourself.
Oh my God.
Ay, ay, ay.
Hey, well, I was a hamburger cook. I was a hamburger cook.
Hey, what are you doing under the table? Playing footsie with me? What are you doing? You
Hold
stop
on.
that.
Hold on.
Stop it.
Hello. Hello, Pharaoh. I say hello to you.
God damn.
Stand up.
Okay, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
Hi, Benny.
Oh, Oh, boy.
Donate!
I tell you, thank God he was the associate producer of that movie. God only knows what would happen.
God really knows. Send us on the way. I want to thank you everybody for joining us. Don't forget, next Thursday and then Friday, we're in a marathon. We've got the great Marty Jannetty where you can ask Marty anything. Great opportunity for you guys.
We've got Val Venus.
With Marty in the middle here, asking Val Venus questions
And
too.
Eugene.
And Eugene.
And who else we got?
And then we got
even remember.
Manny Fernandez,
Oh, my
dude.
God. And then we've got...
Tommy Rich.
Get the bowl packed. I mean, don't come looking for us when we're in the
Smoke-
parking
well,
lot.
there'll be plenty of liquor.
Yeah.
Plenty of food.
Yeah.
Jared, are you ready?
Wait a
Matthew, I am red, dude.
I'm ready.
I'm laughing my ass off. I just can't. But I got to tell you, Dan and Benny, thank you again. Pharaoh, send us on the way.
Dan and Benny. You've been watching Monte and the Pharaoh. And until fucked up, what day of the week is it? Is it a Friday?
It's a Friday.
Until fucked up Friday. Later.
Well, we're back on Thursday.
Whoa. Oh, yeah. We'll see you on Thursday. And then we'll get fucked up on Friday. We love you. Good night. Later.